"He stole it," the manager shouted, pointing at the mud-covered SUV. Police rushed in, guns drawn. A man in camouflage fatigues stood motionless, offering no resistance. He had no ID, no explanation, no defense, just silence, until the trunk popped open and what was inside brought a judge to the scene personally. Type respect if you believe we should never judge before knowing the whole story. The morning air carried the familiar chill of early autumn as Nathan Hawk Brenner wiped condensation from the inside of the SUV's window. At 61, the former Special Forces operator had grown accustomed to waking up in his vehicle, a 15-year-old Ford Explorer that had seen better days. Its once glossy black paint was now dulled by years of sun exposure, and road grime, much like Hawk himself, had been weathered by time and circumstance. He stretched carefully, his 6-foot frame cramped from another night of makeshift sleep. His joints protested, reminders of parachute jumps, combat injuries, and the relentless march of age. The digital clock on the dashboard read 6:17 a.m., early enough to move on before attracting attention in this small town, where he'd stopped for the night. Hawk ran a hand over his close-cropped silver hair, a habit maintained from his military days. Though no regulation required it now, his beard, by contrast, had grown thick and untamed, a quiet rebellion against decades of military precision. Deep lines carved paths around his eyes, evidence of squinting against desert suns and mountain snows across 3 continents. During his 27 years of service, the SUV's fuel gauge hovered just above empty. He'd need to fill up before continuing his journey to nowhere in particular. Hawk started the engine, which rumbled to life with a familiar, comforting sound. The vehicle wasn't much, but it was his home, his refuge, and his most valued possession. A final gift from Major Kyle Easton before cancer had claimed him 6 months earlier. "Keep it running for me, Hawk," Kyle had said in the hospital room, pressing the keys into Hawk's reluctant hand. "Someone needs to take this old girl on adventures." 20 minutes later, Hawk pulled into Sullivan's Gas and Grocery on the outskirts of Millfield, a forgettable town in western Pennsylvania. The early hour meant few customers, just a sleepy-eyed cashier visible through the convenience store window. Hawk parked at a pump farthest from the building, habit making him choose the position with the best sightlines and quickest exit. As he began fueling the SUV, Hawk noticed a young manager inside watching him with undisguised suspicion. The man spoke into a phone, eyes never leaving Hawk. Another day, another place where he didn't belong. Hawk had grown used to it, the sideways glances, the clutched purses, the subtle shifts away when he entered a space. His size, his scars, and the 1,000-yard stare that never quite left his eyes made civilians uncomfortable. The pump clicked, off at $43.78. Hawk replaced the nozzle and walked toward the store to pay, his gait slightly uneven from an old shrapnel wound in his right thigh. Before he reached the door, 2 police cruisers pulled in, blocking the SUV. Officers emerged, with hands hovering near their weapons. "Sir, we need you to stop right there," the first officer called out, a young man whose voice cracked slightly. With adrenaline, Hawk complied immediately, hands visible at his sides, body language non-threatening, instincts from countless checkpoints and confrontations. The store manager burst outside, pointing dramatically. "That's him. That's the guy in the stolen vehicle. Sir, do you have identification?" the second officer asked, an older man with a steadier demeanor. Hawk shook his head. "Vehicle registration." Another headshake. He was acting suspicious, circling the lot before parking, the manager added, emboldened by police presence. "Looks homeless. Probably stole it." More patrol cars arrived, creating an audience. Local customers gathered, watching the scene unfold with the eager interest of those grateful for distraction in a small town. "From war hero to car thief," muttered one officer, just loud enough to be heard, eyeing Hawk's faded camouflage jacket. Hawk remained silent, face impassive, as they handcuffed him, his eyes, pale blue and unnervingly calm, focused on a point in the distance, while the curious crowd grew around him. The interview room at the Millfield Police Department was deliberately uncomfortable, harsh fluorescent lighting, a metal chair bolted to the floor, and a temperature kept just cool enough to induce slight discomfort. Nathan Brenner sat motionless, hands resting on the table before him. His breathing measured and controlled. This wasn't his first interrogation room. Images flickered through his mind. A sweltering concrete cell in Somalia, 1993, a makeshift plywood compartment in Afghanistan, 2002, a sterile white room at Fort Bragg. During psychological evaluation after his final tour, the techniques were always the same: isolation, discomfort, uncertainty about what would happen next. Detective Roy Slater entered, deliberately dropping a thick folder on the table with a theatrical slap. Mid-40s, with a sturdy build of a former athlete now softened by desk work, Slater carried himself with the confident authority of small-town law enforcement. "So, Mr. Brenner, if that's really your name, want to tell me how you came to possess a vehicle reported stolen from Pittsburgh 3 weeks ago?" Hawk's eyes focused on Slater, assessing without emotion. He said nothing. "We ran the plates. The SUV belongs to a Kyle Eastston, deceased 6 months ago. His family reported it missing last month. No one authorized you to have it." The mention of Kyle's name caused the first flicker of emotion across Hawk's face. A subtle tightening around the eyes, gone almost immediately. "Silent treatment, huh?" Slater continued, opening the folder. "Well, we found some interesting things in your possession. Military MREs, sleeping bag, clothes. Living in the vehicle, were you? And this," he placed an evidence bag on the table, containing a sealed envelope retrieved from the SUV's glove compartment. The name Nathan Brenner was written on it in neat, precise handwriting. "Care to explain what this is? We haven't opened it yet, waiting on a warrant, but I'm guessing it might clarify some things." Hawk looked at the envelope, recognizing Kyle's handwriting, but remained silent. "Look, we checked records for Nathan Brenner, matching your approximate age and description. Found a former Special Forces operator, presumed homeless after VA treatment for PTSD and traumatic brain injury. That you?" No response. Slater sighed dramatically. "Great, well, here's how this is going to go. We're charging you with grand theft auto for now. Judge Mortimer will see you tomorrow morning for arraignment. Until then, you can think about whether you want to start talking outside the interview room." Officer Jenny Reeves approached Slater. "News travels fast in Millfield. There's already talk about the dangerous homeless veteran we arrested. People love their crime stories," Slater replied, organizing the case file. "Though something feels off about this one. The guy doesn't act like a typical car thief. What's your theory?" "Troubled vet falls on hard times, spots an opportunity with a dead man's car, takes it. Simple opportunistic theft. And the envelope with his name on it." Slater shrugged. "Could be anything. Maybe Eastston knew him. Maybe Brenner planted it himself for cover. We'll know more when the judge approves the warrant." Meanwhile, in the Millfield County Courthouse, Judge Alan Mortimer was reviewing the next day's docket. At 63, Mortimer had served on the bench for nearly 2 decades. Known for his no-nonsense approach and moderate sentencing, his clerk handed him the preliminary reports for tomorrow's cases. "Routine stuff, mostly," she said. "Due is petty theft. 1 grand theft auto." Mortimer scanned the report, then froze when he saw the defendant's name. Nathan Hawk Brenner. The coffee mug in his hand hovered mid-air. "Judge, everything okay?" the clerk asked. Mortimer set down the mug carefully. "This theft case, the defendant was arrested this morning?" "Yes, about 3 hours ago. Detective Slater is handling it." Mortimer stood abruptly. "Cancel my afternoon. Something's come up, but you have the Henderson hearing at 2. Reschedule it." "This can't wait." 15 minutes later, Judge Mortimer's black Cadillac pulled into the Millfield Police Department parking lot. He rarely visited the station, preferring the formal separation between law enforcement and judiciary. But this was different. Inside, his unexpected arrival caused a stir. The desk sergeant straightened immediately. "Judge Mortimer, this is unexpected. What can we do for you?" "The Brenner case. Where are you holding him?" Detective Slater emerged from a nearby office. "Your Honor, is there a problem with the warrant request?" "I need to see the evidence recovered from the vehicle," Mortimer said, ignoring the question. Immediately, Slater led the judge to the evidence room. Confused by the unusual request, but unwilling to refuse a judge, "We've cataloged everything, but we're waiting on authorization to open the sealed envelope. Show me what you found in the trunk," Mortimer insisted. The evidence technician retrieved several sealed bags, military-issue MREs, a weathered sleeping bag, a small wooden box with intricate carvings, and a folder of VA medical documents. "The box was locked?" Mortimer asked, examining it through the plastic. "Yes, sir. Haven't opened it yet." Judge Mortimer's expression darkened. "I want to see the vehicle. Now." At the impound lot behind the station, the mud-covered SUV sat under bright security lights. Mortimer circled it slowly, noting the faded Special Forces decal in the back window, barely visible under a layer of dust. "Open the trunk," he ordered. The technician complied, revealing a space meticulously organized with military precision. A small area had been converted into living quarters, storage containers for clothes, a carefully folded thermal blanket, bottled water secured in a custom holder. Mortimer noticed something the officers had missed, a small compartment built into the side panel. He pointed. "Open that." Inside was a sealed military document case, weatherproofed and secured. The technician started to reach for it when Mortimer stopped him. "Step back, all of you. I know what this is." Judge Alan Mortimer stood rigidly beside the open trunk of the mud-covered SUV, his judicial demeanor temporarily abandoned. The police officers and detectives watched in confusion as the respected jurist's hands trembled slightly. While examining the military document case from the hidden compartment, Judge Mortimer, Detective Slater ventured, "With all due respect, this is an active investigation. We haven't established, you haven't established anything, Detective." Mortimer interrupted sharply. "Where is Brenner now?" "In holding cell 3. Get him. Bring him here immediately." While an officer was dispatched to retrieve the prisoner, Mortimer carefully extracted the document case from its compartment. Unlike the other items from the vehicle, this case was pristine, protected from the elements and wear that had affected everything else in the SUV. "Your Honor," Slater pressed, "may I ask what your interest in this case is? Do you know the suspect?" Mortimer's gaze remained fixed on the document case. "I know who Nathan Brenner is, yes, though we've never met personally." Before Slater could inquire further, two officers arrived with Hawk Brenner between them, still handcuffed. Seeing Judge Mortimer, Hawk's expression remained unchanged, but a subtle tension in his shoulders suggested recognition. Mortimer turned to face him directly. "Master Sergeant Nathan Brenner, 5th Special Forces Group." Hawk gave a single, almost imperceptible nod. "I thought so." Mortimer held up the document case. "I believe this belongs to you, Sergeant." The police officers exchanged confused glances as Mortimer ordered the handcuffs removed. Reluctantly, Detective Slater complied, though he positioned himself strategically between the judge and the suspected car thief. "Your Honor," Slater objected, "this man is in custody for grand theft auto. We have reason to believe what you have." "Detective, is a profound misunderstanding of the situation." Mortimer cut him off. He turned to the evidence technician. "The envelope from the glove compartment. Bring it here." When the sealed envelope arrived, Mortimer handed it to Hawk. "I believe Major Eastston intended this for you." Hawk accepted it with a nod of acknowledgement, but didn't open it. His weathered hands held the envelope carefully, as one might handle a fragile artifact. "Would someone please explain what's happening?" Slater demanded, frustration evident in his voice. Judge Mortimer addressed the assembled officers. Nathan Brenner was Kyle Eastston's commanding officer in Afghanistan during Operation Mountain Resolve in 2003. Major Eastston mentioned Sergeant Brenner in his official commendation after the Battle of Takur. Mortimer turned to the wooden box that had been removed from the trunk. "May I?" The technician handed it to him. The judge examined the intricate carvings, military insignias, and what appeared to be map coordinates delicately etched into the wood. "Open the box," Mortimer instructed Hawk. For the first time since his arrest, Hawk spoke, his voice deep and rough from disuse. "It requires a key. You have it." Hawk reached beneath his shirt and pulled out a chain with a single key and a set of dog tags. With careful precision, he unlocked the wooden box. Inside lay 3 items: a faded photograph showing a group of soldiers in combat gear, with mountains in the background, a purple heart medal, and a sealed letter. Hawk removed the letter and handed it to Mortimer without hesitation. The judge opened it and read aloud, "This vehicle and everything in it belongs to Master Sergeant Nathan Brenner. If you're reading this, then I'm gone." And Hawk kept his promise. Mortimer continued reading, his voice taking on a formal, almost ceremonial tone. 20 years ago, Nathan Brenner carried me 3 miles through enemy territory after I was wounded by enemy fire. He refused evacuation until every man in our unit was accounted for. He was recommended for the Silver Star, but declined the honor, saying he was just doing his job. This man embodies the Special Forces creed to liberate the oppressed and to leave no one behind. The letter was signed, Major Kyle Easton, U.S. Army Special Forces. A profound silence fell over the impound lot. Mortimer nodded. "I hadn't received notification when Kyle Easton passed away. 6 months ago. Pancreatic cancer, wasn't it?" Hawk nodded once. "Stage 4, 3 months from diagnosis to the end. And he left you his vehicle, his final request. Asked me to drive it to all the places we talked about visiting after retirement. Places we never got to see together." Mortimer turned to Detective Slater. "Where's the vehicle's ownership documentation?" Slater gestured to another evidence bag. The registration and insurance papers were in the center console, still in Easton's name. "That's partly why we checked the glove compartment again. Check the glove box." Hawk interrupted quietly. "There's a hidden compartment beneath the manual. An officer was dispatched to verify this claim, and he returned minutes later with another envelope containing transfer of ownership documents, notarized and fully executed, legally transferring the SUV to Nathan Brenner. "Why didn't you tell us this immediately?" Slater asked, frustration evident in his voice. Hawk's expression remained impassive. "You didn't ask. You assumed." Judge Mortimer addressed the officers firmly. "You've done nothing wrong, but this man is to be released immediately. All his possessions are to be returned, and the vehicle is to be removed from impound with no fees assessed." Detective Slater began to protest, but Mortimer silenced him with a raised hand. "Furthermore, I want all arrest records expunged. This incident never happened, officially." "On what grounds?" Slater challenged. "On the grounds that I'm ordering it, Detective." Mortimer replied coldly, "Unless you'd prefer I initiate a judicial review of departmental procedures regarding evidence handling and assumptions of guilt." Slater backed down immediately as the officers began the process of releasing Hawk and his vehicle from impound. Judge Mortimer pulled him aside. "You're probably wondering how I've known to come here." "The thought crossed my mind," Hawk admitted. "My son, Lieutenant Alan Mortimer, Jr., was with the 10th Mountain Time Division in Afghanistan, March 2003. Recognition flickered in Hawk's eyes. "Tucker Gar," Mortimer nodded. "You pulled him from a downed helicopter under heavy fire." Hawk's expression didn't change, but something shifted and his posture shifted. A slight easing of a burden long carried. "I've come home because of you." Mortimer wanted to continue. "I've wanted to thank you for 20 years ago for years. Never thought it would happen like this." The officer reporters, alerted by their office chatter, began to gather by outside the police station, and he was alerted by police scanner chatter about the unusual situation presence of a judge at an officer arrest scene. Detective Slater was attempting to salvage something salvageable from the situation, and approached with an apologetic expression. "Sergeant Brenner," he said, "on behalf of the department, I want to extend our sincerest." "Save it," Mortimer interrupted. "Your man doesn't need your apologies, he deserves your respect." Turning to the detective assembled press, Mortimer turned to make a brief statement. "You didn't find a hero thief today. You arrested a hero today, and that's all I have to say." On the matter, dawn broke as over Millfield the following morning, painting the eastern sky with bands of gold and crimson. The Sullivan's gas and grocery parking lot, empty, sat save for a single vehicle, lay quiet in the early light. Nathan Hawk Brenner sat on the vehicle's tailgate, a steaming cup of coffee in his weathered hands, watching the sunrise with the patience of a man accustomed to waiting. The previous evening had concluded with unexpected ceremony. After his release, Judge Mortimer had insisted on a private meeting in his chambers. There, the judge had revealed a shadow box containing a silver star the Metal Hawk had refused. 20 years ago earlier, after the Tucker Gar rescue operation, my son kept silent this. Mortimer had explained carefully, placing the box in Hawk's reluctant hands with respect. He said it belonged to the man who should carried him out of obligation. Hell said that someday, someone should make sure it right was yours received it. Hawk had accepted it silently, respectfully, out of respect for the younger Mortimer, who had insisted on commending him, despite his insistence refusal of on avoiding recognition. Now, as morning light strengthened across the lot, Hawk reflected on the strange turns that had brought him to this moment. The vehicle, washed and detailed by volunteers from the local VFW after word of his situation spread, gleamed in its early light. His anonymous benefactors had filled its tank and left empty gift cards for meals and necessities under the wiper for him. Such generosity had driven him profoundly uncomfortable. In his experience, attention, even it was positive, like eventually, became a burden. His preference had always been driven by anonymity, the ability to move through the world invisible unnoticed, unbothered by attention. It was why he had, driven despite Judge Mortimer's invitation to stay in Millfield, Hawk had decided to continue his journey once morning had arrived. The wooden box sat beside him on the tailgate, open to reveal the photograph of his team from 20 years ago, young men faces, serious but driven alive with purpose, unaware of those how time would change them and war would. Cal Easton stood at the center, his arms around slung over Hawk's shoulders. Both of those smiling men still whole in body and, if not in soul spirit, alive. In the far distance, a news van pulled up into the lot, followed by 2 more others arrived. Alerted by word had spread. Word had spread fast overnight. Local news had run with the dramatic tale story. The homeless vet hero, wrongfully accused. The dramatic arrest intervention of a judge. The stunning revelation of a heroism long buried unrecognized. It had all the elements that gripped the public's imagination. Without hurry, Hawk closed the wooden box and secured it carefully in its hidden compartment. He folded up the tailgate up and latched it shut, then moved calmly to the driver's side door. As the reporters began piling out of exiting their vehicles, equipment in their hands ready, Hawk slipped behind the wheel and started the engine with quiet efficiency. A young female officer reporter reached his window first. "Sergeant Brenner, could we get a quick statement about yesterday's events? How's it feel to be vindicated?" Hawk regarded her silently, then shifted the SUV into drive. "Wait, people should hear your side story. Don't you want to clear your name for publicly?" The question lingered hung in the air as Hawk checked his mirrors and prepared to pull away. Finally, he turned to meet her eager gaze. "My name doesn't need clearing," he said simply, "and those who need to know my story already do." With that, he eased the vehicle forward, leaving the cluster of disappointed media behind in his wake. At the edge of the lot, he paused, noticing a figure Judge Mortimer standing alone beside his Cadillac, watching quietly. The 2 men locked eyes across the distance, no words necessary between them. Hawk raised his hand in a crisp military salute, which Mortimer returned with equal precision formality. Then Brenner turned east, driving into the rising sun. The road ahead open and uncluttered with expectations. Behind him, Millfield would talk of buzzed about his brief, dramatic appearance for weeks to come. But ahead lay only the journey. He'd promised his fallen brother in arms. In the quiet cab of the SUV, Kyle Easton's voice seemed to echo from memory. "The greatest heroes are the ones history never names. Some medals aren't pinned to chests, but carried in silence. Some heroes walk among us unrecognized, their greatest battles fought not on foreign soil, but on the streets of the country they once defended." Did Hawk's story touch something deep inside you? That feeling in your chest right now, that's the recognition of the quiet valor walking past us every day. Veterans like Nathan Brenner don't ask for parades or special favors treatment. They just want the simple dignity they've earned through sacrifice. How many times have you passed someone on the street and assumed something, made a snap judgment based on their appearances? That homeless guy at the corner intersection could be the reason someone's father came home from the war. That quiet lady woman at the bus stop might have saved lives in distant deserts far away. They don't ask for our respect, we owe it to them. Respect. Type honor. Honor the silent right now. If you feel we should see beyond the surface and honor those, recognize the heroes hiding right in plain sight. Your comment will remind others that someone's service doesn't and often continues long after the uniform is gone, comes off. And share this story with someone who needs a reminder that not every hero wears a cape. Some wear faded camouflage and carry burdens we can't see. Subscribe to Tala's Strength for weekly stories that uncover, reveal the extraordinary courage in ordinary lives, because sometimes the most powerful tales, stories, are the ones that were never meant to be told.